Okay everyone, welcome back to another video on the channel. Today we're back on GT Sport and we're back with the FIA Manufacturers round number 3, driving at Dragon Trail Seaside in the Group 4 cars. You can see I'm in P3 in the Mercedes, a very nice qualifying session, so close to P1. You're going to see how close these times are. Tiago Ferraris on P1 on a 45.8. Just behind him there, Jimbo's conceding in the other Mercedes, and myself just a fraction behind that. Was a little bit upset I didn't get into that P2 because I really wanted to get in P2 and push to try and stay in Ferraris slipstream. However, it wasn't to be. But this race was a very big talking point with regards to a certain driver that really needs to be banned from this game. You're going to see him when he pops up towards the back of the grid in a moment. You can see going through the grid there. Quite a big names in this lobby, and another Mercedes driver there in P8, fourth driver. Going through the grid, you see very big names all the way down the grid. Even Rick 918 BMX in the P10 in the Porsche, very good car. I was surprised to see him that far back. It was just such a close qualifying all the way at the front. I was really happy with my lap in qualifying of a 145.8, although I knew I could have got 3 tenths faster. It was just a case of hooking up, but I can't complain at getting a lap into the 45s when it mattered. So going through the grid, you can see getting down to him. We're going to see the person that a lot of people have heard about anyway, especially in the top splits. He's been ruining a lot of people's races and deliberately taking people out in top splits, and the motive behind of a lot of it has been either certain drivers or Nissan drivers, and people that are towards the front in the Nissan cars. He's right at the back of the grid. You can see him in a minute. Marine Le Pen, I think it is, when we get there. You may have seen another video talking about him. Here he is now. This guy is, the sole aim of this driver is to wipe people out and just ruin people's races, really. And his aim in this race was to ruin basically Ferraris' race. And there's going to be an incident that I'm going to show you at the end of the video in the highlights, just to show you how bad what he did was. And I think what we all need to do is, any lobby that we're in with him, we need to report him, because he's doing it. He's been featured on a lot of people's videos now where he's wiping people out of races on purpose, and for an FIA series it's not good enough. So starting this race anyway, we're going to concentrate on the action. Starting P3, obviously I'm really happy with that. Straight away trying to get in the slipstream. I wanted to get past P2 obviously straight away and get onto the slipstream of Ferraris in Nissan. I knew that Ferraris would try and drive aggressively. He does tend to do that whenever I've been in lobbies with him. He drives fairly aggressively, not too worried about fuel saving, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get on with this and try and get in his slipstream and just hang on in there. But straight away, Jimbo's in P2 didn't want to do that. He just wanted to save fuel. You can see the gap building up straight away. It's like he wanted to save his fuel, which is a fair enough strategy. But you can see I was trying to get past him. I actually got really close to him there. I had to brake really aggressively to avoid going into the back of Jimbo's. P4 behind me in that Nissan, getting a little bit aggressive through the corner, but I had nowhere to go. Obviously I had the Mercedes in front of me. So going up the hill now, trying to get in the slipstream again of Jimbo's, and you can see he's pushing a little bit harder through this section, but he's kind of lost the slipstream with P1 already, and I was a little bit disappointed because I knew that I had the pace to stay with pretty much anyone in the slipstream on this track. I'd done a practice race, obviously with other people, and I knew my pace was good on my own, so I knew within a slipstream I'd be able to hang in there. As P4 tries to go around the outside here now, and this is a little bit frustrating. We're going side by side. I give him the space on the left hand side. He nudges me then and again there, and I pick up a 5-second penalty for that, which I was really annoyed about because he was basically pushing me over. I decided to let him go there because it's just too dangerous to go side by side, and he ended up losing anyway. But he hit some cars behind him. Unfortunately for them cars that were following, they ended up getting taken out basically. That's why I backed out the corner. I could see that it was just daft to go side by side through that corner. I did expect him to back out on the first corner, obviously going into the apex of the first corner, but he wanted to hold it and go side by side. As I ran a little bit wide on the exit there, trying to get a really good exit to catch up to P2, and actually got a little, only a 4 tenths penalty, so I wasn't really worried about that. It's only a half a second penalty. Probably going to be gone before even getting to the end of the race if I can just keep it clean. But going into turn 1, you can see Nissan having a little look, but he was a little bit too far back, but he's decided just to throw it up there anyway. He gives me a little nudge, which kind of fair enough, but I was a little bit annoyed that, you know, he wasn't really side by side. But I thought if that's how we're going to race, I'm quite happy to race like that. You can see the state of P3's cars already. It's not really in good condition there, but going through this corner I could see he braked really early, so I just thought I'm having that inside. If he was going to do it to me on turn 1, I'm going to do it back there, and I thought I'm getting myself back up. I'm not going to take this anymore. I think I've been too respectful in a lot of these races, so I thought I'm going to start being a bit more aggressive and get that position back straight away. I did it clean though. I saw a gap on the inside, he braked really early, and I took my P3 back. So now trying to get back into, you see I lost quite a bit of time in that there, lost nearly 6/10 of a second to P2 as I obviously trying to battle away. But annoyingly, I knew that if I drive aggressively, that's why I'm revving it out at this stage, because I want to get close to P2. I wanted to drive aggressively and try and push him to use his fuel up. And unfortunately, though, you can see P1 there now already is too far up ahead, and not really any chance of catching Vivaris up. You know, once Vivaris is gone, to gain 4 seconds on him, it just probably wasn't going to happen. The Nissan was very strong at this track. Its tyres were not the best though, so if there was a chance of hanging on there, I wanted to push and just see if I could, you know, put him under pressure. There was no point me hanging back and worrying about fuel in this race. I wanted to drive reasonably aggressive at this stage. As you can see, the drivers behind quite a little bit. I've got a little bit of a gap now to P4. As coming out the corner, I get a really good exit and actually increase the lead a bit. But then he's picking up that slipstream, and I go over to the right hand side, obviously to try and avoid him getting the slipstream, but he doesn't want to pick that slipstream up. And so that's better for me because he's going to stay about 4 turns behind. But have a little look on board, look how far back he is at this stage. And I think he missed his braking because he just turns it into an overtake. He misses his braking, hits me there, but then goes to turn in again, hits me again. And that's made me lose even more time now. And GTA Matty's now on my inside because of that incident. And he's got the inside line. I'm going to try and hold it round the outside, but GTA Matty gives me a little nudge. Obviously not his fault, he's going for the move. And I just about hold on to the corner and keep P4. So a little bit frustrated with that driving by Nissan driver. Admittedly, he did apologise, which is fair enough. You know, if someone drives like that, I was annoyed at the time, but he admitted that it was a mistake. He outbraked himself and he apologised. So no hard feelings. As long as, you know, someone's apologised, I'm not going to hold it against him. And I'm sure we'll have a good race another time. I just think he was just a bit too aggressive on the early stages of the race, and I don't know whether I think he misses braking into the 150. Probably slipstream assisted. It can catch you out. It's easily done. I've done it to people, so everyone makes mistakes. And again, there going through the corner, he got really aggressive and got very close to the rear of my car. But unfortunately for him, he couldn't really get the exit speed that I did because I had the slipstream of Matty in that Aston Martin. So now going through the really fast chicane, the dangerous chicane, and it looks like I did that reasonably well there and just hanging on to Aston Martin. But the Nissan behind me also hanging on to my slipstream, but look how close the battling is behind. Real close racing, but Vivaris obviously in the front there, pulling away, and P2 Jimbo's starting to build a gap up where we're battling away here now. And annoyingly, I knew I had the speed because I'd done practice races. You know, I think I'd probably raced with a few people that may watch this video. I had reasonably good pace in the practice races I did, beating a lot of reasonably good drivers, and this was frustrating because I didn't want to do this race fuel safe and I wanted to drive this aggressive. You can see having a little look on the inside there, but I could see there was no point me throwing it up the inside there. It was only going to end in collision, so I held back from that one. It wasn't a safe overtake and just decided to stay in the slipstream of that Aston Martin now and just try and see if he can drag me along a bit. The Aston Martin had really good straight line speed. Really, it was very strong at this track. When I was following, I could see it had good turning and it had really good acceleration on the uphill parts. So it was helping me out just to keep that Nissan away from the rear of my car, which was kind of handy. I think I probably could have kept equal speed to the Aston Martin anyway, because the SLS and the Aston Martin fairly equally matched. I think at this track there wasn't much of a difference, especially in the race trim. The Mercedes again seemed like an okay car for this track, and it's starting to feel like I'm getting used to the car now. You know, managing P3 in qualifying, and also Jimbo did a great job in P2. Two Mercedes in the top three really does show this track kind of suited the Mercedes, as you see there in the distance. Force in the other Mercedes pulled the move on the Nissan, and now they're going side by side through the chicane. So this is helping me out because they're battling away and they're not on the rear of my car, so I can just concentrate on just staying with Matty in P3 he is. And you can see just behind there's been an incident. It looks like the Nissan's had another incident in that fast chicane. It looks like he's lost quite a few places in that because he's gone completely out the top 8 positions. So now there's a gap to myself and P5. In P4, still not a bad position. You know, started P3, I did really want to attack and get into Vivaris' slipstream, but it wasn't to be. So P4, and now I've got to try and change my strategy a bit here now because I've burnt a lot of fuel up for 4 laps and there's only 3 laps to the pit stop. So you're going to see I decided to just change and try and go for a different strategy just to bring the fuel back a bit, because I could see I was in a bit of a awkward position with the fuel. So going down and short shifting a little bit in GTA Matty's slipstream, and decided to save some fuel for these remaining few laps and not drive too aggressively, because if I carried on with this driving, I was going to be pitting with maybe 5% fuel, 6% fuel, and I'd end up losing places. So had to be a little bit tactical here now and change strategy midway through the race, which was a bit annoying. Obviously I wanted to drive this aggressively. That's how I'd practiced it. I had practiced pretty much driving nearly like maximum revs, maybe like 95% revs, and being aggressive. But now I'm in this position, it makes more sense just to save some fuel for a couple of laps and then try and drive the last section aggressive. That was the aim. I wanted to drive the last section aggressive. I was just going to save some fuel now and then try and pit, obviously, and put more fuel in. You can see P2's starting to drop back a bit. It looks like he's been saving fuel right from the start. I think he's been short shifting pretty much from lap 1, so he's going to have good fuel when he goes in the pits. It's pretty clear because we're gaining on him now at this stage. We're starting to close back up on Jimbo's, and it looked like I could tell straight away from the off that he didn't want to drive aggressively. He just wanted to save fuel, and because the way that Tavares pulled away on the straights, I don't think Jimbo's was interested in racing Tavares. I think he just wanted to save his own fuel and run his own race. He had obviously been practicing this race, running a different way to what I had, so it's interesting, the two different strategies. I still think that the fastest way would have been to stay with Tavares, because he would have dragged you along quite a long way. You can see he's already 6-7 seconds ahead of myself, so he, there was a chance to be right up there with him, and then any loss in terms of pit stop loss, you're going to get it back anyway because you're going to be that further up the track. But GT and Matty driving really well in that Aston Martin, doing a good job. Very evenly matched. You can see the way they're taking the corners, pretty much identical to the Mercedes. The lines that we were taking, I think the acceleration was a bit better on that Aston Martin, but I think the handling might have been a bit better on the Mercedes. It was very close. I mean, it was a good little comparison to have when being behind this Aston Martin, and just trying to push hard now, getting that slipstream. And again, for this lap 6 short shifting, you're going to see me doing a lot of short shifting to try and bring back this fuel. I've only got 2 laps to do it in though, obviously wasted a lot of fuel in the early stages, but you can see the gap developing now. Got a reasonably comfortable gap to, it looks like, the Porsche behind me, so that'll be Rick in the Porsche Cayman. So one of the fastest drivers on GT Sport is Rick BMX, and I know that he's going to be pushing hard, so he's probably done a lot of fuel saving also in them early stages when he's been behind other cars, saving fuel. And then now he's probably pushing a little bit hard because he's saved quite a bit of fuel. And also the Cayman is another car that's actually very good with its fuel. There's a few cars, I think the Citroen, the Lexus, the Cayman, they're all very good with the fuel. The Lexus and the Citroen are a little bit OP with their fuel, but the Cayman's just a reasonably good fuel saving car. But you can see Aston Martin driving really aggressive. I was on 2 wheels then, trying to push really hard. And look how close we've got that gap to P2 in the Mercedes Jimbo's. So driving really aggressive. You see my car really sliding up. I wanted to get on with this up, and I could see straight away as I came out this corner, it looks like the Aston Martin's pitted. He pitted with, I think it was about 32% fuel or something like that. Let's have a little look. 33%. I had 27 at this point, so I brought the fuel back a little bit after that start when obviously I drove too aggressively. And also I've started to bring the gap down. You can see it's down to 1.6, 1.7 seconds to Jimbo's there in P2, and I wanted to get as close as to Jimbo's as possible as I went in the pits. So I kind of just not worrying about fuel too much. I'm not revving out maximum, but I just wanted to be a bit more aggressive on this in lap because I knew I had tyres that were in reasonably good condition, and I knew that the fuels are quite low, so I can drive reasonably aggressive and hit a good lap time. I wanted to try and give myself a little bit of time advantage to any cars that are behind, because I'm not going to be good in the fuel situation anyway, so there's no point in saving fuel in this lap. And you can see going through the first sector split, a blue sector, so my personal best in the race. So it shows you how much time I was obviously holding back on them few laps behind the Aston Martin, and now driving really aggressively, just trying to pick up, see if I could even pick up P2 slipstream. You can see I've already gained about 3-4 tenths on P2 at this stage of the race. He's clearly doing a lot of fuel saving, he's maybe half a second to 7 tenths of a second slower a lap, so he's short shifting that Mercedes. And I knew that from the test runs I did, if you do that, it can be done in the Mercedes, but it tended to be about half a second to 6 tenths slower. And my theory was, obviously, if you're going to get a slipstream with someone who's faster than you, like Tavares, then you can just hold on in there with them, because this track's such a slipstreaming track that I wanted to try it. That was that's why I've been practicing it, because I didn't expect to start pole. I was surprised to even start P3, to be fair, but I was really happy with it. But going into the pits now, you can see got the gap under a second there on the exit, 7 tenths, 8 tenths, so gained nearly a second on Jimbo's, but you're going to see the fuel situation now as I go in the pits. Luckily, I've got more fuel than P1 for Varus. Obviously, he drove aggressively, managed to get it up to 14%, but Jim Bow's on 25%, so a lot more than myself. And a lot of other drivers have got more, obviously, if they've been saving fuel behind me and slipstreams and stuff. And I obviously drove the first part of the race a little bit too aggressively, but I didn't mind. I knew that I needed 82% to drive aggressively to the end, so watch me go all the way up to 80. I didn't mind. I ignored the diamond, just put it up to 82% because I knew I had a gap behind me. I wanted to drive this last section aggressively. I didn't mind if people overtook me. The aim was to just push on this last section because this track you can overtake on. This track's wide, it's got a lot of slipstream, so if you can push, you can then start being aggressive. As you see, just pulling in behind them, snaking that Citroen, doing a good job there. Obviously saved a lot of fuel in that first section. I kind of knew that would happen with the Citroen. Such a good car at saving fuel that he's obviously jumped me in the pits, even though he was about 4 seconds behind. So that really does show you as we come through this corner now for Varus. This is the start of the instance with Marine Le Pen. You can see there, Varus has been took out of the race there. That wasn't a mistake by Varus. And then we're coming through to the Fascia Cane, and you're going to see Marine Le Pen waiting for him again up there. And I don't know whether his target was RC Snake or Varus this time, because look, he stays there, blocks him, and then turns straight into Varus, and I had to cut the corner to avoid all that, and actually picked up another penalty, which was a little bit frustrating because I had nowhere to go. But when I saw that, I was disgusted. They need to do something with this because he is doing this in more than one races. He's just been waiting there. What he's done, Marine Le Pen, he's not pitted, he stayed out, and then he's just gone looking for Varus to stop Varus getting P1, because obviously with the Nissan competition that's on at the moment, they're running a competition with Nissan, and a lot of people are saying that this Marine Le Pen is something to do with TX3 Dayro. TX3 have actually dropped Dayro from their team since this and since other stuff that's happened, so there must be some evidence support that it is something to do with Dayro. And as he's coming through to the last corner, I run a little bit wide here now, but to be fair, I wanted to let Varus back past because he did not deserve that. So I put my hazards on here now just to say, you know, go past, and actually lifted to let him pass on the straight, because for me anyway, it was better just to stick in Varus' slipstream, and I wanted to see something anyway, because at the start I was going to drive aggressively. So watch, I let him pass, he gives me the hazards to say thank you because he obviously appreciates what I've just done. And now it's just about kind of using Varus as well, because although I did that because of what had happened then, because I mean, look at the state of Varus' car, what he did to him on the corner. You're going to see at the end of this race what he did the first time was the worst. Some of the worst things I've ever seen on the game. Was disgusting, and this isn't the first time Marine Le Pen has done this. If there is another video going around, I think it's Oscar Windy Food on his YouTube, there is some really terrible driving by Marine Le Pen on that as well, and doing the exact same thing as he's done here. You know, Marine Le Pen stayed out of the pits and just went for Varus because the competition that's on, obviously he wants that P1 spot, and that's why a lot of people are saying it's something to do with Dayro. Dayro was P1 in the Nissan manufacturers, so it makes sense that someone would be going looking for other drivers in Nissan, and that's what they've been doing. It's disgusting driving, and I really hope that Polyphony can track the IP or the console used for that account and ban it from the game, because that would be justice in my view. Whether it can be done, I'm not too sure. They must be able to do something to do with the PlayStation that's being used for the Marine Le Pen account, and just block that PlayStation, because it is really, you know, I really did feel sorry for Varus. He had run pretty much a perfect race from the start. He drove faultlessly, aggressively as well, which I like to see. You know, he wasn't worrying about his fuel. He drove aggressively. He pulled out a lead and was driving pretty much perfect all the way to the pit stop. Come out the pits, and that happens to him. So I did feel sorry to him. But now I'm going to use Varus obviously to help me drag all the way up to the front, because I deliberately put more fuel in at the pit stop so I can drive aggressively. And now we're going to start putting some reasonably good lap times in. So you can see straight away I'm holding on to Varus' slipstream, and this is what I wanted to do at the start. Obviously I knew I could have done it, and this kind of shows me that I did have the speed to stick with Varus as long as I did slipstream. I think without the slipstream it would have been a bit of a struggle, although in the practice runs I was doing 1 minute 45.8s to 9s in race conditions when I had no slipstream. So I did have the speed, but I don't know whether I would have had the speed and consistency together that Varus has got. You know, he's really pushing that Nissan, and I'm just taking advantage of the slipstream. You can see also behind me taking advantage is Rick in that Porsche, obviously using the slipstream as well. I think he gained a bit of time when all that chaos happened through this part of the track with Marine Le Pen, and now he's on my right on the back of my car with the slipstream. and also pushing hard. So myself and Rick are gaining quite a big amount of time from this now, but obviously using Favaris' slipstream, and we're gaining on P1 and 2. Look how close this is getting. This is showing that the fuel, although my strategy lost me some places in the pits, it's now bringing me back into contention for the lead battle in this race, and that's what I wanted. I wanted to be able to push hard. At this stage of the race, so often we're concerned about the fuel, having to fuel save. I wanted to put more fuel in and just see what happened and drive aggressively. Is going into that corner, had a moment, clipped the wall, and Rick actually gave me a little clip that boosted me back up there to the slipstream of P3, and I put my hazards on just to say sorry for that to Rick, obviously, but no harm was done. He's kept his position, I've kept my position, and Favaris has obviously kept his position. So keeping on with the race and pushing really hard and just trying to stay in this slipstream all the way to the end. It's been a great race, apart from that really frustrating thing that we saw with Marine Le Pen, and it really does annoy me that stuff like that ruins these races, because this race was really entertaining, it was fun. There was close racing going on, and even at this stage, look how close I would have been anyway to P1 and 2. I think I would have been reasonably close to this pace, because my pace when pushing hard with the second split was all 46 ones to 3s anyway. This lap would have been better if I didn't hit that wall coming out the chicane of death, as we call it, but I managed to just still get 46.1 even though I hit that chicane. But look how close this is. This is getting really close, and I'm staying in the slipstream of Favaris, and this is what I wanted. Obviously Rick as well is staying in my slipstream. That's benefiting him in the Porsche. The Porsche was probably a better car through the corners, but I don't think it had as much straight line speed as myself in the Mercedes and Favaris in the Nissan. So he's kind of getting the benefits of our slipstream and then getting closer during the corners, because the Porsche was just a really good handling car in the corners. As you can see, P1 and P2 are battling away. GT Matty's got himself into the lead, going side by side with that Mercedes. The Mercedes was quite weak through that corner. That was a corner where the Nissan got a run on the left hand side and then started turning into the side of me here, and that's why I've got that big penalty, which was a little bit frustrating. I haven't really mentioned it much in this video because I think people get a bit annoyed, but it was frustrating to have a 6-second penalty to get rid of at the end, because I'm racing here now and I'm not really racing for this position, because obviously P5 is going to jump me when I have to get rid of that penalty. But I wanted to try and push anyway, just to see how closely we can get this towards the end of the race and just have some fun, because this is what we want. We want to see close racing with some of the best drivers on the game. We don't want to see people like Marine Le Pen interfering and ruining good races. I really did feel for you can see, you might have noticed as well, I've not really been making too much of an attempt to overtake Favaris. Got a big slipstream at this point, but had a look there, but thought I'm not going to go for it because it's just stupid, because I really should, Favaris should be in the lead, so I didn't want to throw one on the inside there. And again, he puts his hazards on, I think, in this part of the lap. Let's just check now. He puts his hazards on there just to say thank you for not throwing it up there, because he obviously understands I could have done it, but I chose not to, because I don't want to ruin his race. He's already had enough from other people, and I didn't want to be that person that takes him out. So I just stayed behind them, just using his slipstream. As you can see, the Porsche behind me actually nearly lost control of that car, got onto the grass as he put the power down, and the rear went on him, and he just about saved it. Luckily for him, he did a really good job at saving his car and just about kept on the power as well. So close to losing out on the slipstream and losing a lot of time, but he didn't, and he kept in it. So fortunately for him, and I was looking in the mirror kind of thinking, oh, go on, just lose the slipstream, but he didn't. So great driving by him. Still 5 cars involved for this lead battle for the race. You're coming down to the final lap in a minute, and there's 5 cars that could still win this race, but obviously I knew at this stage I've got a big penalty to get rid of. And you can see also Jim Bose has got no penalty, but myself, Favaris and GTA Matty all got penalties, and it looks like, I don't think Rick had a penalty at this stage, as I hit the wall. I literally followed Favaris into the wall. It happens so much when you're following someone. You kind of concentrating on their car that much. If they take an unusual line, you kind of follow them into that unusual line, and we both hit the wall. Rick managed to get past me, but again, it didn't really make much difference to the race, because you can see in the Citroen behind me, RC Snake there, also probably going to jump me no matter what anyway, because I've got 7 seconds worth of penalty, 6.8 seconds worth of penalties to get rid of. So at the line, I'm going to have to get rid of them, but still, even a P6 position I'd be really happy with in this race, because it's still consistent, solid points. My aim at this stage, I've said it before, is to get 5 races of consistent points in, and then I'm sure there'll be some races where I get a bit more luck and things go my way, because I've shown I've got the pace now. I'm starting to get consistent with the Mercedes. I'm starting to understand the car, how to push it, and I'm putting a little bit more practice in for this season also. As you can see, this was not an attempt at an overtake. You could see me trying to avoid him so much. I even went into a drift to try and avoid hitting him. I outbraked myself and just turned as sharply into that corner as I possibly could to make sure that I didn't hit Favara. So my aim there was to lose time at the cost of not hitting Favara, because I don't want to hit him and, you know, cost him any more time in this race. So I'd rather take time, myself lose time, than obviously wipe someone else out. But I know a lot of people don't do that. They just turn them into overtakes and use them as like a wall. But I try not to do that. I always try and avoid contact, you know, as much as possible. And then going into that corner, I don't know why I did that. I just cut that a little bit there and picked up another half a second penalty. So the penalties built up even more. Now 7.5 seconds, but that was my fault. That was just laziness in the drive. And I think I'd kind of give up at this stage now, because I knew I was in P5. And I knew I was going to lose P5, so you can see me, I'm just driving scruffy. I knew the snake was going to get me anyway, so no point fighting him. It looks like he also had a little incident on that corner, as he's just going to breeze past me, because there's no point me fighting him. So I just let him have that inside. I've got to get rid of my penalty, so I'm not going to fight him and lose any more time, because you can see behind me there's other cars, and I've got to try and get rid of this penalty before the finishing line and see if I can maintain P6. So coming up to the finishing line, onto the brakes, you can see other cars are braking as well. Favara had a little penalty to get rid of. Some other cars didn't. Looks like P6 did, but just managed to get over the line before Force in P7 in the other Mercedes. So that's good for me to finish ahead of the other Mercedes. I had really good pace in that race. It was just I couldn't really use it as much as I would have liked. And reasonably happy to come away with some solid points. It was a bit disappointed that I couldn't have got closer to P1. Obviously, very great job in the Mercedes getting P1. I think Favara would have had it covered quite easily. You know, looking at his first stint pace, he was going to win that race by 8 seconds or more, but he ended up getting taken out. And this was the highlight. So this was where I was getting bumped into the side. You can see, just random. I was giving him space, but he just kept out, and I actually got a 5-second penalty for that. So at this point, I decided to lift off the throttle and just let him have that corner. I just let him go there because it was just getting silly. You know, going side by side through that corner is not something you want to do. And look at the mayhem that he kind of caused behind him when he lost control. So it, you know, shows you it's not just your race you affect. You've got to think of other people's race. Now this was the overtake on me. Obviously, reasonably fair. I mean, he saw the gap on the inside. I just didn't expect him, and I didn't think he was going to go for it because he was over a 4 cars behind. But it was fair enough. But this is where I thought I'm going to put up some aggression because people are doing it to me. So I seen him brake really early for that corner and decided I'm having that inside line. Got the car up the inside, pretty much the same type of move that he just did to me, and did it back. So fifth, pretty much like for like. But this was too dirty. This was on the brakes too late. Missed his braking zone, hit me there once, put me into a slide, and then turned into me again there, as if I wasn't there, which was a bit weird because I think he should have just backed off at that stage. But he tried to fight back, and then I was on the outside of the Aston Martin going through this corner. And a little touch, not Matty's fault really, because it's a fast corner, he had the inside line, but I was just trying to hold that position so I didn't lose anymore. Unfortunately got away with keeping P4. Now this is Marine Le Pen. This is disgusting. This is, look at him braking and using the throttle until he's side by side and swipes Favara out from P1. That was when Favara was clearly in the lead. You know, he would have had fuel to pull away again. He would have probably ended up 5-6 seconds more in the lead. And Marine Le Pen destroyed his racer. That was just disgusting. And this is why I say we need to report this person every time you're in a lobby with him, whether it's a daily race or anything. His aim is to ruin people's races. It's disgusting. And watch this again. Puts himself in the middle of the apex and just gets hit there and then turns straight into Favara again. Horrible driving, and I don't like to see that, especially in top split races. You do not expect that in a top split race, and understandably Favara was really annoyed at that. I can imagine him being raging, because I would have been really annoyed, you know, in P1 having a great race and that happened. So disgusting to see, and I hope that Polyphony do something about this, because I don't want him to be ruining other people's races. You know, to try and get yourself, if that is Dayron, which a lot of people are saying it is, or it's Dayron's brother, which some people are saying it is, then if it is, I think he should be ashamed of himself really, because that's not how you try and win these competitions, by using a second account and destroying other people's races. So let's hope, I really hope it's not Dayron, because Dayron is a clean racer in himself. He drives fair and he drives clean. I've had a lot of good races with Dayron. But if that is day one, it's really not good to see, and I've lost a lot of respect if it is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. It was a great race, even with the slight controversy there. A lot of close battling. I was a bit unfortunate with instance, but I'm sure things will turn around and I'll get some luck in some future races. But I really enjoyed that race. It was fun to be in, and looking forward to the next race. It looks like the Mercedes-AMG GT3 is again reasonably competitive at the next track. I didn't expect it to be competitive, but I did my practice last night, and the car felt really nice there, so I'm looking forward again to that Saturday's race. Hopefully can put some practice in on Saturday and try and get myself as close to the front of the grid as possible again. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Thanks again for watching, everyone.